Israel's former ambassador to the United Nations, Danon. Thanks for joining us again. Mr. Ambassador, let me ask you, Prime Minister Netanyahu, even though he couldn't be there live, certainly delivered, I think, a vintage address, and even managed to use the fact that it was a pre-taped address. He had access to video to his advantage in this case.
Thank you for having me, Calev. And as you mentioned, it was a different General Assembly. Usually you have the leaders in the room, you have the media in the room, so the setting was different, but the Prime Minister took advantage and actually presented the videos. And in the past, he always told me, Danny, why can I not show something? And I told him, you don't do that in the General Assembly. You basically cannot do it technically. So he took advantage of that, and he stressed the point of Iran continuing to take over Lebanon, and he addressed the Lebanese, and he told them, wake up, it's your life, it's your future. And Calev, I don't know if everybody listened to him, but I'm sure when the next explosion will happen in Lebanon, and it will happen, they will go back to the speech today, they will go back to the speeches I gave in the Security Council, and we can tell, we told you so, wake up. Look what Hezbollah is doing in Lebanon. It became a hub for explosives in the airport, in the port of Beirut, near gas facilities. And I hope somebody will wake up today in the Lebanese government and will try to take action against Hezbollah.
Right. I hope it won't take another explosion there. But unfortunately, given Lebanon's recent history, that may well be the case. Now, Danny, let me ask you, because we discussed this issue in the past, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke this time directly to the United Nations on the issue of those sanctions against Iran. I mean, how effective, or at least how receptive at all, do you think the UN is going to be to his call for the UN to step up on those sanctions?
I'm not optimistic about it. Let's look at what happened a few weeks ago when the US came to the UN and asked the Security Council to join the effort of the US to apply sanctions again. And the UN ignored the request of the US. Secretary Pompeo was by himself in the Security Council. So I think it was important to speak about it. I think it was important for us to show to the US that we are standing with them. And I believe that we can get the support of few moderate Arab countries in the region to support the US demand. But I don't see, unfortunately, the European countries joining the US efforts today to reapply sanctions.
Yeah, it certainly hasn't been the case. Now, Danny, I want to listen. The United Arab Emirates Foreign Minister, Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, also spoke today at the United Nations, and at one point certainly addressed the peace treaty with Israel and also the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, or the hopes for it. Let's just take a listen to what he said, and I want to get a reaction from you.
With signing of a historic peace accord with Israel, supported by American efforts, my country was able to freeze the annexation decision and opened broad prospects to achieve a comprehensive peace in the region. We hope this peace accord will provide the opportunity for the Palestinians and the Israelis to re-engage in negotiations to achieve peace. Our position towards supporting the Palestinian people and achieving the two-state solution is firm.
Now, Danny, I should say, of course, in your role, not as an ambassador to the United Nations, but as a leading figure in the ruling Likud party, you have spoken out in favor of annexation and against the notion of a two-state solution as an answer to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I want to get your reaction to the UAE foreign minister there seeming to imply that these are direct results of the Israel-UAE peace treaty, which, of course, you've strongly spoken out in favor of.
Calev, most of us supported the agreement, and we welcome the agreement. And we thank President Trump for his efforts to put it together. At the same time, regarding applying sovereignty, I believe in our rights to the land in Judea and Samaria. I think the day will come and we will apply sovereignty over the communities in Judea and Samaria. And let's be optimistic. Even the leader from the UAE, he spoke about freezing the move of the Israelis. And I don't know if it's a direct quote, but it's still on the table. So it's not happening now. We were hoping that it will happen last month, in the month of August. It didn't happen. but it's still valid. And I think it's up to the Israeli government to push it forward and to apply sovereignty. We remember when Menachem Begin did it, and I think today we all support the decision of applying sovereignty over the Golan Heights. So I think we should continue to push it forward. And yes, maybe now it's not on the table, but it doesn't mean that in a month's time or a year time, we can bring it back.
And how do you answer those? And I'm referring back to the speech, the address by the Prime Minister, where he spoke about the belief that more and more Arab states will be signing normalization agreements with Israel. But those who say that every time Israel does that, in essence, that gives the Arab world more leverage on Israel to move towards the path of the two-state solution, which is still the preferred solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict of the Arab world, including those nations that now have agreed to normalization with Israel.
I beg to differ with you. We welcome their involvement. We want to see them involved. And for years, I said, let's change the paradigm. Let's first build bridges with the moderate Arab countries, and they will help us to negotiate with the Palestinians, and it will be a realistic negotiations. And I think today the fact we have peace treaties with 4 countries, Egypt, Jordan, UAE, and Bahrain, and God's will, in a few weeks, we will see more countries joining them. It will help us to come back and negotiate with the Palestinians a realistic peace treaty. Look what happened in the last 72 years. The Palestinians always rejected the negotiations. They rejected all offers. So maybe when we will enter the room with more Arab leaders, moderate, realistic leaders, they will choose realism over rejectionism.
And Leslie, I just want to get back to the Iran issue. We heard the Prime Minister again speak about and praising the Trump administration over its decision to withdraw from the nuclear agreement. How concerned are you as we head to a U.S. election, no matter what may happen, that the U.S. could either reverse itself or soften its position regarding the Iran nuclear agreement?
That's the major issue for us, and we always stressed it. It's concerned our safety, our security, and I think that any administration will continue with the position of the U.S. administration today to push the Iranian, because you cannot argue with facts. And we provided facts. We revealed documents. We revealed videos to our allies, and they know exactly what the Iranians are doing today. So today it's not about what's actually happening in Iran. It's about how you handle it. And I'm optimistic about that the U.S. will continue to support it. I'm less optimistic about the Europeans, what they will choose to do. And that's where we have to put our efforts in the next few weeks.